I want to say I've seldom received such an introduction. Your ability to orate is outstanding. Your sincerity and acknowledgments, humbling, and your delivery was astonishing. I would like to say that I'm glad I'm not coaching anymore because you take my job. The paradox of our time in history is that we have taller buildings but shorter tempers, wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We spend more but have less. We buy more but enjoy it less. Or bigger houses and smaller families. More conveniences but less time. More degrees but less sense. More knowledge but less judgment. More experts but more problems. We drink too much, smoke too much, spend too recklessly, laugh too little, drive too fast, get too angry too quickly, stay up too late, get up too tired, read too seldom, watch TV too much, and pray too seldom. Indeed, we have multiplied our possessions but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. I'm sorry, give me love, give me love, give me love, give me love, give me love. We've learned how to make a living, but not a life. We've added years to life, but not life to years. We've been all the way to the moon and back, but have trouble crossing the street to meet the new neighbor. How you doing? So nice to see you. We've conquered outer space, but not inner space. We've done larger things, but not better things. We've cleaned up the air, but polluted the soul. We split the atom, but not our prejudice. We write more, but learn less. We plan more, but accomplish less. We've learned to rush, but not to wait. We build more computers to hold more information, to produce more copies than ever before, but have less communication. How you doing? Good to see you. These are the times of fast food and slow digestion, of tall men and short character, of steep profits and shallow relationships. These are the times of world peace but domestic warfare, of more leisure but less fun, of more kinds of food but less nutrition. These are the days of quick trips, disposable diapers, store morality, one-night stands, overweight bodies, and pills to do everything from cheer to quiet to kill. It's a time when there's much in the showroom window and nothing in the stockroom. It's a time when technology can bring this by email. That's how I received it. And it's a time you can either choose to share this insight or just hit delete. What I'll ask you to do today is not to hit delete. Life is indeed not about stuff, but about people. The most important things in life aren't things at all. It's you and I. And if you don't mind, it's been brought to the forefront in the last 24 hours, more so than normal. And if you don't mind, if you just turn to the person next to you and say, I'm glad you're here, and I hope you're having a great day. Go ahead. Now, if you don't mind, I want to help to try to create a little more energy in the room. So when I say clap, I want everybody to clap, but just one time together. Now, if you have something in your hand, don't worry. Instead of clapping, I just want you to say, woo! Okay, all right. Here we go. Ready? Clap! I love it. I love it. Again, clap! Growing up as a kid, my role model was Martin Luther King. And one of the quotes I enjoy best of his is, he suggested that life's most urgent question is this: what are you doing for others? Right. Life's most urgent question: what are you doing for others? When I think back, my mom was my all-star, guys. She was a single parent. She was 18 when she had me. Her mom died at 5 years old. Her grandmother died 2 years later of complications from tuberculosis. So she was raised by her great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, who went blind around the time I was born. So at 18 years old, not only did she have to raise me as a single parent, I should say, she also had to take care of the person who had raised her. But I don't want you to feel sorry for me, because I didn't know I was poor, right? And my mom loved me, and school came easy, and sports came easy. I went to register for football when I was 8 years old, and we got there. I was so excited. Like, this is you get all the pads, the helmet, everything. You get it all. football, right? I mean, we had played football before, but that's not real football. You get the pads, you get the equipment, everything on. And I was so excited I got there that day. My mom walked so proudly to the front desk with me, and she says, how you doing, ma'am? Says, I'm doing great. I'm going to register my son today. He's so excited to play. They said, well, where is he? I was standing right beside her, right? But you know, when on registration day, there are kids everywhere, and the young kids have to stay, the really small kids, they got to stay close to mom, right? So they don't go too far, right? But the bigger kids, like, they go out and run around. Well, they obviously thought that my older brother was playing, right? So she said, well, here he is. He's right here. She said, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, he has to be 8 years old. She said, he is 8 years old. They said, well, show us his birth certificate. Now, she wasn't being smart or sharp or anything. She was looking after my well-being. She was like, this kid is just too small, right? And so she sold him the birth certificate. And she said, well, ma'am, if he is 8 years old, can you just bring him back when he's a little bigger? She's like, hold on, you don't know this boy. He's got too much nervous energy. I don't care if he ever hits the field, right? But you're going to give him some equipment, and you're going to let him play, even if he just runs up and down the sideline. I don't care, right? Well, by the time I was 11 years old, I had my jersey retired at a local restaurant, true story. But the real key for my mom was, she missed one game from the time I was 8 years old to the time I was 18. She was the one who took me to practice every day. She took me to school every day. She organized her schedule around being able to do those things. Having said that, football wasn't the ace. She supported me and she was there for me, but academics, that's what was most important. And I couldn't play if I had a C. And I tell my kids, a C is not this thing you call a C today, right? Because a C was a 75 to an 84. So all my marks had to be 85 or above. But she didn't do that because she was strict or mean. She did it because she believed in me, even more than I believed in myself. The story goes, I went on and I was a pretty decent little player, and when I went to high school, they said I was going to be too small, and I was the most valuable player in my county and a first-team all-state player in Florida, which usually means you can get your choice of any university you want to go to. But I was 5'5" and 150 pounds with nickels in my pocket, right? And all the big schools said I was too small. Well, I did get an opportunity to go, and I went to a school called the College of William and Mary. It's the second oldest school behind Harvard. I also had a chance to go to both Harvard and Columbia, both Ivy League schools, and that was because of her. She was the one who instilled the discipline. She's the one who challenged me. She's the one that made it happen. Well, interestingly enough, I get to William and Mary, and again, the littlest guy on the field, and things go pretty good again. I was the only player on offense to travel with the big team. And then the next year, I became a starter. Over that off season, though, I got a chance to intern. Little company called Honeywell. And at Honeywell, I worked on the hand and flight control for the space shuttle. I was on the business side. They didn't let me get anywhere around the engineering of the tool. Yes. But I had this wonderful, rich experience. But I tell you, I went back that second year after that internship, and that second year I went back, and things went pretty well on the field. I got beat up a little bit, but I was a starter. I came home during the holiday season, and I was complaining to my mom. I was like, Mom, I mean, you know, Dave, I mean, you want to be like everybody else, right? So now, freshman year, you have to live on campus. Sophomore year, we all chose to live off campus. Why? Because if you're on scholarship, they have to give you the same money they pay for the dorm, right? They have to give you to pay for your room. So we just, we just put a bunch of guys in the same room so we could have some extra money, right? So it was 4 of us in there, and I'm not sure how many rooms, whether it was 1, 2, 3, or 4, but it wasn't 4. Yeah, it was a divine time, if you will. But when I came home, I was complaining. I was like, Mom, why do we always have to struggle? You see, at Honeywell, I had graded out so well, graded out over 90%, that they had agreed to bring me back every summer. And in fact, they put me in a leadership program and were going to pay for my MBA when I was done playing football. And so this was pretty good. I had become kind of a little local hero. I was playing really well. But I was the only one of the roommates who didn't have a car. And my roommates, they didn't always have the same classes, and even when they had the same schedule, they didn't always go on time. And I came home complaining to my mom, Mom, why do we always have to struggle? Like, I'm doing so well here. I got into this Ivy-like school, and you know, we already have a job after I'm finished, and they're going to pay for my MBA, right? Star player on the team in only my 2nd year. All of this stuff, working so hard. Why do we always have to struggle? My mom had just bought herself a brand new 1984 Pontiac Grand Prix Brougham. Now, Brougham meant something, right? Brougham meant there was a little extra luxury, right? Like, Brougham meant when you sat down, the seats responded, right? That's little, just a little extra comfort. Whoa. So I, as I was whining and complaining, my mom gave me her car to go back to school with, so I'd be on time for class. I want to let you know that that's the most embarrassing thing I've ever done in my life. My mom sacrificed everything so that I could have the opportunities that I was enjoying. And just when she got to the point where she could do something for herself, I had the audacity to take her car back to school while she took the bus to work. Not my proudest moment. But you know, the crazy thing is, she'd do it all again. I think the difference is my mom saw the best in me. Where someone else may have seen selfishness, where someone else would have been overwhelmed at the audacity that I had to complain at such a rich time in my life, she still saw the best in me. I think that's what Career Edge is all about. Is having the opportunity to see the best in people. You see, when we don't have a job, when we don't have an opportunity, we may have a little education, a little something, we just look green. Giving that internship gives people an opportunity to see the best in us. That's what actually happened for my mom. Little town called Dunedin, Florida. You heard of it before? It's where the Blue Jays train. Yes. My mom was the first person of color to work in an administrative position for the city of Dunedin. I said that my mom was a single parent. My dad gets a bad rap on this because my dad really wanted my mom to come back with him. He lived about an hour away, right, in a town called Bradenton, Florida. She didn't want anybody to think that because he was a college student, she needed to run behind him. And so she said no. She stayed, but he paid for an administration course for her. And she took this admin course, and someone came to one of the leaders of the black community and said, do you have anyone who could work in the admin or as a receptionist for the city of Dunedin? And says, as a matter of fact, there's a really nice young lady who, well, just happened to finish an admin course. They hired her as an intern. Try it out. She was the receptionist as they started, and within 5 years, she became the supervisor of the utility billings department. And she did that for another 33 years. Tremendous role model. It was an internship that really gave me my foundation as well. You see, as a football player at an academic school, maybe with a little bit of idea of wanting to play pro, that whole idea, you know what, I've got a job. I've got this internship. It gave me confidence. I can get to the next level. I think it changed the way I played. I think it changed my mentality. Listen, I was already going somewhere. As a freshman or a sophomore going back my second year, already knew that I had a job when I was done. I was headed somewhere. At this point, it would be appropriate for all of you in this room who are responsible for helping people like my mom. Honeywell had a program just like you do at RBC, Kim, that helped give me that confidence. Yeah, it looks the same. And so for that, what I'm going to ask at this point is if you would give yourselves, whether you're an intern that's here, you've done your job, right? Or someone who works at Career Edge or one of the many partners, I'm just going to ask all of you to give yourselves a robust round of applause, please. All right. Okay, that wasn't bad. This time, like you mean it. Woo! Yes! Woo! There was a drifter who came across a farm, and he went up to the farm and he told the owner of the farm, says, "Sir, I don't have a place to stay or any food to eat, but I'm really good with my hands. If you would be willing to give me a job where I could work for myself," said, I'd love to have the opportunity. I can do just about everything. I'm really good with my hands. And the farmer actually immediately said yes. And he said, "You see that farm over there?" He said, "Yes." He says, that's this farm, your farm, and the other farm is the best farm in this whole region." He said, "I saw it. I spotted it out." He says, "Yes, and you're here because you couldn't get over there, right?" He says, "Yes, that's right." He says, "Well, you see that farm over there belongs to my brother. And my brother and I built our lives together. But we got in an argument, and he took the same tractor that we built our whole lives with, that we supported our families with. He took that very same tractor and he drudged a ditch to separate our properties." He says, "What I'm going to ask you to do is build a fence so that I'll never have to see his face or his place ever again." Now, this sounded a little bit intense, right? But the drifter needed a place to stay, so he agreed. he said, okay, we'll get started in the morning. That morning, he showed him the wood pile and where all the tools were and said, you'll have everything that you need here. I'm going into town. I'll see you at the end of the day. Towards the end of the day, the farmer came back, and he still heard the hammering and out there, and he says, wow, this guy is a hard worker, right? That's, this is a good thing. He went inside, and he put a little coffee on, and he went to walk outside, and it was just getting to the point where it was about dusk, and he could see a shadow walking towards him. He was like, okay, he must be done. And as he saw the shadow walking towards him, it was a familiar gait. The walk eventually turned into a run, and this guy threw his arms around. He says, my brother, my brother, my brother. He says, I can't believe the audacity I had, right, to build this ditch to separate our properties. And you, my brother, you had the kindness in your heart to build a bridge so that we could have a relationship again. Now, the farmer was obviously knew that wasn't his intention. But everything at this point seemed so menial, so juvenile. Like, why did we do this? And so he just embraced his brother. And all the other stuff didn't make sense. It didn't make a difference at this point. But as he hugged his brother, he knew that he had some unfinished business. And so he says to his brother, hold on a minute. And he went to find the drifter. And when he found him, he said, sir, you need to know that for as long as you live, you've got a place to stay. There's always something to do around this farm. He says, he didn't quite say thank you for building the bridge, but his thank you was, you've got a place to stay. The drifter says, no, I'm sorry, I have to go. He says, no, what do you mean? He says, there's plenty of stuff, always stuff to do around here. He says, we need you. He says, no, I'm sorry, I have to go. He says, well, what do you mean you have to go? He says, well, you see, I've got other bridges to build. This room is filled with bridge builders. I want to thank you. We have to keep building. Anything else is going backwards. Right? Does that make sense? Turn to the person next to you and say, keep building bridges. Go ahead. All right. If you haven't done so already, turn to the person on the other side and say, keep building bridges. I want to thank you for being difference makers, team. And in saying that, can I tell you one more story? We have time. We okay? We're okay. What time? We're supposed to finish at 5? But okay. All right. We had a coach say, all right now, y'all better get it right. He had a little twang to him, right? He was a Texas kid. And he's like, all right, you better get it out. You better get it right. I'll have you out here to dark 30. But if I can just share this last story, I'll have a last quote, and then I'll ask for your help, and we'll be done, okay? There was a little boy whose sister had a very serious illness, and she needed a blood transfusion. The only perfect match was the little brother. He was only 5 years old, but the doctor still had to get his approval. So he went through the process to tell him everything and what was happening, and he tried to simplify it as much as he could, but it's still a complicated story, right? It's a complicated trying to say what happens in a blood transfusion. And so as he was explaining it, he asked the little boy, do you understand? Do you have it? And so he tried a couple of different things. And finally, the little boy says, Doc, I don't understand, but if it'll save my sister, I'll do it. So the day came, and this is said to be a true story. And the little boy was sitting in the bed beside his sister, and the blood began to go from his veins to his little sister's veins. And as the blood began to go from his veins to his little sister's veins, they were about 3 hours into it, and they said that you could actually see the color beginning to come back to the little girl's face, right? The little boy was nervous and frowning, and the doctors, said, hey, son, alongside the nurses said, I think your sister is going to be okay. And he nervously said, that's great. That's amazing. And half hour passed, and they noticed he was still frowning. And they says, son, we think your sister's going to be okay. He says, I know. He says, well, why are you still frowning? He says, well, can you tell me? When will I begin to die? You see, the little boy couldn't completely understand what a blood transfusion was, so he thought he had to give all of his blood to his little sister. But you remember what he said? If it'll save her, I'll do it. Partners, what I'm saying here is, in business, we make different decisions. Sometimes we go in one direction, one time we go another direction. I need you who are in leadership to continue to petition for this program. We can't do it without you. You see, this program really is more about what you're willing to give. And what you get in return is most often surprising, striking, exceeds your expectations. And the vast majority of the time, it actually exceeds your output. But it starts with you. You got to give us the chance first, right? You are our lifeline. You're the blood transfusion. You give us a chance to live, a chance to fight. Makes our community better, our community stronger. Organizations become better, our organizations become stronger. And you change lives. I want you to repeat after me, if you don't mind, as we finish. When I say, no, you'll just repeat after me. We rise by lifting others. Louder this time. We rise by lifting others. Yell it this time. We rise by lifting others. Now, I believe that that's the sweet spot, right? When I say sweet, would you say spot? Ready? Sweet, sweet, sweet. Now this time with more passion, okay? I say sweet. You say spot. Ready? Sweet, sweet, so sweet. Yes. I begin with Dr. Martin Luther King, and I will end with him as well. He suggested that the concepts of love and power have been contrasted as polar opposites in our society. In order to exercise love, we must resign ourselves of power and vice versa. He said, but love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power without love is reckless and abusive. Indeed, power at its best is love. The two are synonymous. Career edge, power, love. I love it.